So just to give a brief bit of background, just out of curiosity, how many people here actually have heard of NetSuite previously? Almost everyone. That's great, actually, because that's that's one of our big initiatives. We're a reasonably well-known company in Silicon Valley, but nationally we're certainly looking to expand our recognition. Most of you probably know NetSuite as the world's leader in cloud ERP. But one of the things that we have focused on increasingly recently is about how do we empower our customers to engage with their customers, their partners, and their vendors better through building commerce systems directly on top of the ERP system. So if you think about ERP historically, it was used to run the internal operations of the business, and there was a salesperson or a support person or somebody who was using software and then was interacting with customers, partners, and vendors. A huge part of what we're doing in the world with NetSuite is now that you have all of your data up in the cloud, how do you expose that data to your business ecosystem in a manner that allows them to more efficiently do business with you and have better customer experiences? And so one of the big successes that we've had that actually happens to be a common customer with Mastery is Williams-Sonoma recently announced that they're powering their full international expansion, retail, e-commerce, and all of the back office operations on top of NetSuite. So this is a huge success, and I think it's reflective of our increasing focus on moving from just supporting a company's internal operations to supporting how they do business with their customers and do so better. And this was an incredible deployment because we actually got their e-commerce system up and running in 3 months. And this is a company that has spent tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars building their US-based e-commerce infrastructure. And now they're rolling out their international infrastructure on top of NetSuite. So a huge testament to the power of the joint solution that we're going to talk about. So when we talk about the next wave of commerce, we talk about customer commerce. So it used to be about e-commerce, but then people figured out that people wanted to shop online and pick up products in store. And when they were in store, they wanted to be able to research what products were available. And when they went to check out, if a product wasn't available, they wanted the sales associate to be able to find this product in a different store. And so increasingly, what's happening is that companies have recognized that their job is to support their customers' ambitions to do business with them and to provide them with a great experience. And no longer are they designing for standalone e-commerce, and no longer are they designing for B2B e-commerce. They're designing for who are my customers and how do I actually serve their needs. And this is a really important evolution. But it creates a new set of problems because instead of going out and buying an e-commerce platform, you need to think deeper into the technology stack in terms of how you're going to support what your customers are trying to get done. And those customers may be internal customers. For those of you who are in internal IT organizations, obviously that's a really important piece. And for anyone who's in an internal IT organization, you've certainly had the experience where somebody inside your company comes to you and has a great business idea that you agree is a great idea, and you simply don't have the infrastructure or the technology in place in order to support them. So supporting customer commerce has exposed a whole new array of challenges. The average e-commerce site requires 17 or more vendors typically to support it. That's a lot of data coming from a lot of different places. You can start to understand the complexity of the challenge. And that is just if you're running one brand e-commerce site in one country and you're using the single platform to support both computer-based, mobile-based, tablet-based e-commerce platforms. Integration has been very ad hoc. So the e-commerce teams have been out there running around and doing everything they can to serve the needs of customers, and they're buying technology and they're implementing systems that may not have a cohesive view of what the long-term goal is. They're just trying to keep up with their customers and what their customers are asking them for. There are a variety of different systems where data is getting stored. So if you look at a typical retailer, they typically will have a point of sale system. They'll have an e-commerce system. They may have a separate mobile commerce system. And all of these different transactions are flowing into different systems, and it becomes almost impossible to paint a cohesive picture of who your customers are, let alone exposing inventory information to all those different touch points. And then global supply chain. So as you expose your customers to a variety of different places they shop from, exposing the products that are available to them, whether they exist in your warehouse, whether they exist in a retail location, or whether they exist somewhere in a partner or a vendor's warehouse, but you'll be able to get that product to them, is an incredibly difficult challenge. And so with all this data coming in from all over the place, obviously, you need to get out ahead of the curve because otherwise you're going to be in this mode of continually being reactive, and people are going to go out and implement systems to help themselves get their jobs done, but that may not make sense for the long term of the business. So just to touch on this, this is just a subset of what we typically see when a customer is going to look at doing e-commerce. And this is, in many cases, whether it's B2B or B2C e-commerce. And I think the thing is that's important is not necessarily these specific types of technology that you're integrating together, but what comes next. You already see this list. You know there's something else around the corner. You know that this is a rapidly evolving industry where business users are trying to keep up with their customers. So how do you take advantage and kind of get your arms around all of this? And really, when you look at it in a multi-brand and multi-country environment, it just becomes more complicated. So what you need to do is you need to get out ahead of this, and you need to start putting in place a consolidated infrastructure that's going to allow the business users at the periphery of the organization to innovate while you manage to maintain some semblance of sanity and control and visibility into how the overall business is operating. So most of you guys, this probably isn't anything new, but you see a proliferation of different places where your enterprise data is important for doing business and doing business with customers, partners, vendors. iPhone applications, mobile browsers, tablets, social. You know, social, everyone thought social commerce was going to be this great thing, and now there's kind of this sentiment that it's not a big deal. Well, you know what? I'm betting that eventually it's going to become a really important piece of things. When you have more than 1 billion people on Facebook, people are going to figure out how to appropriately engage, present products, present inventory, transact business through social. And for those of you who are in the B2B business, you better be thinking about LinkedIn, because that is becoming the hub of where people go to get information from a business perspective and engage with others. So a lot of complexity here. And then you look at it and you say, well, that's a B2C problem. You know, from a B2B perspective, this is a whole lot simpler. Don't worry about it. Well, the reality is the B2B world is actually very complicated. Manufacturers are now starting to sell direct to consumers on their website, but they're still selling through their traditional distribution channels. They're listing their products on Amazon. They may be opening up specialty retail locations. So this is not a problem that is unique to one business, because this is a problem that is being driven by consumer demand. Business users are being asked for these things, and we need to provide them with the infrastructure to support this. One of the more interesting areas that our CEO in particular is very fond of talking about is machine to machine. So we have a company, Intuitive Surgical, that performs surgical operations, and it has consumables. It has blades, and it has suction tubes and things along those lines. These machines actually have a very good picture of how many blades they've gone through, how many consumable supplies they have left. It's just a matter of time until they're making these machines call back in and order product to be fulfilled and support the disposables that they're using. So this is an entirely different type of commerce, and one that the API is incredibly important, because there is no user interface. There is no person who's interacting with it. This is a system that is designed for machines to talk to the other commerce systems. Software has been doing this for a while. Antivirus is actually one of the great examples of this, where they ding your credit card every month or every year, and they update the software on an ongoing basis. But there are other areas where this will happen. Your car, you know, for those of you who have a Tesla, you have a 17-inch screen there. Why isn't that 17-inch screen telling you when it's time to order new windshield wipers and allowing you to push a button so that that order can be transacted? An entirely different touch point and an entirely different technological infrastructure is necessary, because there is no web browser that sits on top of it. But you need to be prepared to know where your inventory is, to know who the customer is who's ordering, and to fulfill that demand. This is the personal favorite. Your refrigerator should know when you need more beer. If you don't believe that that's coming, if you believe in a demand-driven economy, somebody's going to figure out how to do that and make an awful lot of money. And then this one is the one that actually resonates with me, which is your electric toothbrush needs to know when to order, you know, new bristles for your toothbrush. Because you know what? You're supposed to do that every 3 months. How many of you actually remember to do that? The toothbrush should be able to figure that out, and it'll help companies sell a whole lot more bristles, and frankly, it'll make my experience a whole lot better. So, you know, as you hear these examples, they may sound crazy, but they're coming, and you should be thinking inside your head, do we know how we would support that? Do we have an architecture in place that's going to allow this proliferation of touch points to be supported? I think for most people, the answer is probably not. Most of you are probably looking at a commerce infrastructure that looks something like this. You have commerce systems that exist on the front end. You have an order management system, a marketing system, point of sale, e-commerce, and you got a whole bunch of hand-coded integrations that exist between that and the back office. And those integrations, as you guys all know, they're going to break. Software is going to get upgraded on the right-hand side, and the left-hand side isn't going to work out right. The left-hand side is going to get upgraded, and the systems on the front end are going to break, which is even worse because then your customers see that things aren't working the way they need to. And you end up spending an incredible amount of time and money fixing those. So, part of NetSuite's value proposition is a single suite to run your business. And in the NetSuite example, all of these systems are running on top of a platform that is natively integrated. And then with the Mastery example thrown in, any external data systems can be managed through the centralized API management. And so rather than being in this spaghetti world that you're continually patching and upgrading, you have a system that operates on an ongoing basis. So as you think about putting in place an infrastructure for this world that I've painted for you that is this wonderful place where your refrigerator knows you need more beer, what are the things that from an IT infrastructure perspective you need to be thinking about? A couple key pieces that we've kind of zeroed in on. Global inventory visibility. This is an incredibly powerful concept that really empowers your customers to make more educated decisions. And frankly, your customers will make a lot of these decisions for you. A customer comes to your e-commerce website and you don't have a product in your distribution center for e-commerce, but you may have a retail location nearby where the product is actually sitting on a shelf. You know what? Expose that to the customer. Give them the option to figure out, you know what? Sure, maybe I wanted this product to get delivered to my house, but because it's just down the street, I'm going to drive down the street and I'll pick it up. Or the other way around. If the customer is in the store and you don't have the product in the store that they need, allow them to place that order from the point of sale system. Global inventory visibility is incredibly empowering, and even if the customer says, you know what, I don't want to place that order because I need it today, or I don't want to pay for shipping, you've at least shown them the respect that you're exposing the product to them and allowing them an alternative versus just giving them a dead end, which is incredibly frustrating for customers and makes customers think that you don't really know what you're doing. Next piece is global visibility to your customers. So you need to know if a customer spends $100 with you online and $100 with you in store and $100 calling up a customer service representative and ordering something from your catalog, that's probably a pretty valuable customer. Is that data on that customer flowing into a single system so that you can actually understand that customer is valuable? Or do you have fragmented systems, each of which thinks that customer is not terribly important? So make sure that as you roll out your IT infrastructure that you're actually creating this unified view of the customer, because once that customer view gets fragmented, it's virtually impossible to put it back together. So I heard a VP of e-commerce for HP on stage talking. And they said, what's your most important objective for next year? And he said, getting a unified view of our customer. I said, okay, that's interesting. What about the year after that? What's the project that you're going to work hardest on that year? And he said, getting a unified view of the customer. So if you're not thinking about how you're going to build a unified view of your customer and consolidate all the information across all of the different touch points into a single system, you're going to find that you're going to have a hard time making decisions about which customers are the most valuable to you. And then beyond simply looking at dollars transacted, which is what most people look at customer profitability. Customer that you may acquire through a Google AdWord, they may come in and they may place an order with you, and you may lose money on that first transaction with them because you paid for the cost of acquiring that customer, and then they may place a small order. But on an ongoing basis, subsequent orders, once they're in your database, email marketing, all of the continual touch points that you have with that customer, you may find that that's an incredibly valuable customer. That's an insight that you would not have been able to realize were you running if you were purely looking at customer revenue. So from a NetSuite perspective, what we would say is that's a strong argument for why your transactional systems should be built on top of the same platform that you have your financials in. So if you are using a traditional e-commerce platform that's disconnected from your financials, where are you going to be able to piece together that picture of the customer and actually determine whether that's a good customer or a bad customer? It's incredibly difficult. So by building your commerce infrastructure on top of the core operational systems you use to run your business, you're able to make a whole lot better decisions. Support for global everything. So even if you're only doing business in the US today, e-commerce and digital allow you to much more rapidly expand internationally. And we have customers who come to us all the time who say, I'm looking for an e-commerce platform that supports international because I want to sell overseas. And we say, that's great. We have that. And then we say, but when you open this distribution center in Australia, how are you going to file your taxes? And they're like, oh, we didn't think about that. And they say, well, you know what, I bet Oracle can do that for us. And Oracle can if you have a big enough checkbook. But the reality is that powering things like international expansion, multi-language, multi-currency, tax reporting, financial consolidation, subsidiaries, is an incredibly complicated undertaking. So as you're looking at rolling out your infrastructure, make sure that everything that you're rolling out actually supports the global expansion plans. Because it may look simple when you're talking about launching an e-commerce business in the US or deploying a point-of-sale solution in the US, but when you have 4 different countries running 3 different brands, supporting mobile, supporting computer-based, supporting point-of-sale, and then you're going to try and pull all that together and figure out what's actually going on with the business, good luck with that. That's a very challenging undertaking if you don't have this centralized view of your business, if you're not consolidating the approach that you have to running your business. And then the final piece is very interesting because it's the ability to innovate at customer touchpoints. And this is where a lot of the actual tension in rolling out these global commerce platforms comes from, or global operational platforms. There are a lot of systems out there that have been designed to support global expansion. I won't name the competitors that NetSuite runs up against, but for years and years and years, this has been the core operational systems have been run on top of ERP platforms. But what's different is now you have customers and partners who are coming to do business with you, and you have business users who are coming to you and saying, I want to build this great customer experience, and they talk about the iPhone application that they want to build so that all of their partners who are out there calling on customers can enter orders in via the iPhone, and that's great. But then you realize that those core operational systems were designed to be locked away behind firewalls, and so they didn't want anyone to have access to them. And they were built with the idea that all of the system would be contained within that single system. And so they aren't built with the idea that this platform that they're running their business on top of actually needs to support the ways that companies want to engage with you. So innovation at customer touchpoints is a huge challenge. So the typical customer who's got all these different customer touchpoints is trying to figure out, how am I going to get this unified view of the customer? And the reality is that it's the marketing team who's the marketing team or the direct-to-consumer team or the direct sales force. Those are the guys who are the least likely to think about IT infrastructure and architecture. And so the biggest challenge that organizations face is, here's some people who are in charge of creating these great customer experiences, and they don't have the least bit of interest in any IT infrastructure. So how do you support that? And the reality is you have to give them the tools that they want to use. You have to allow them to build on top of what are increasingly common JSON APIs. You need to allow them to build in HTML, build with JavaScript, build with CSS, which from an architectural perspective is pretty far removed from the traditional world of ERP that most companies are using to run their business. So you need to support the innovation at the customer touchpoints, but then you need to actually make a deal with these guys. We're going to give you a platform that allows you to innovate and build great new customer experiences, but in exchange for that, we're actually going to require you to use our standardized set of APIs so that we can actually get centralization. We can get that 360-degree view of the customer. We can make sure that you're decrementing inventory appropriately when you've committed a transaction from your website that needs to get fulfilled from within the customer center. And so this is the architecture that we've put in place in conjunction with Mastery. And so if you take a look at it, this is kind of NetSuite right here. ERP system, CRM, e-commerce, and fully globalized. With Mastery, who is able to integrate to a wide array of other API providers. And so you've moved from a world where you have all of these different disparate systems that you're running your business on top of NetSuite. You're using Mastery to communicate data back and forth. This is a back-end integration with Mastery where the data would be flowing into NetSuite. At the same time, we've also built a service-based architecture on top of this. So allowing the most common commerce functions to be exposed as services. So allowing your customers to log in via these services that then support basically an unending array of commerce experiences built on top of the platform. And Mastery obviously is a hugely important piece of this, because while NetSuite has been built, as I said, as a single system to run your business, we also recognize that we're never going to be truly a single system to run your business in the world of commerce that we're in today. And so partnering with Mastery is an important piece of how our customers have been successful deploying these global commerce solutions. So service-based architecture here that allows your business users to implement whatever front-end experience they want, but make sure that all of the data is flowing back into the back-end systems and getting normalized in a manner that allows you to run your business effectively. So my last slide here, as you're thinking about how you're going to deliver on customer commerce going forward, a couple things that you should think about. First is, a lot of technology buying decisions are typically department-driven. The e-commerce team wants a new platform. The in-store team wants wants to be able to have a new POS system. Or, the team wants to put up a B2B site so we can sell directly to our distributors. Or the robots want to be able to order parts, and so we're going to implement a specific solution for that. You're not going to get to a sustainable model looking at it on a department-by-department basis. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have 10, 12, 20 different departments through different commerce channels, different brands, different countries who are going to come to you. And if they're making decisions on a department-by-department basis, you're going to create the absolute hairball of all hairballs, and you're never going to be able to get out of that world. Build on a sound foundation. So choose systems that are designed to be enterprise class and designed to scale. The next time a mobile commerce thing comes along, you know what? It's great if you can find a mobile commerce provider who's going to do a great job supporting you on an ongoing basis. But think about what it means when you take that small mobile commerce provider and you try to deploy them across 4 different sites and then integrate that data back in with everything else that's going on inside of your organization. So choose really robust technology. An e-commerce system will never solve the global commerce problem, because you're going to be perpetually in this world of integrating your commerce platform back into the core systems that you use to run your business. Understand that things are only getting more complex. It's not going to get simpler. None of us probably know what's coming next. All of us know there's something coming next. And so choose a technology that is future-proofed, that is designed with a service-based architecture in mind, so that your business users can build what they need to on top without having to come to the IT department and ask them to implement a new technology or to roll out a new platform. And then this is an incredibly daunting challenge. In some cases, this is a board-level decision to say, you know what? Setting ourselves up for future success, we need to go in and tell all of these departments that we're going to get our arms around this problem. It's a very difficult problem, but the reality is companies like Nordstrom are out there spending $140 million over the course of the next 3 years to solve this problem. This is not a problem that virtually anyone has solved. It's a problem that everyone has identified. And so start making plans today for how you're going to support your customers and your business users in the long haul, even if they're not necessarily coming to you and asking for this, by getting a handle on your APIs and building your business on top of a single system.